For a few moments, I just simply want to talk about why salvation shouts me. Amen. Why salvation shouts me. For too many Christians, I believe that we shout over the wrong stuff. You see, we shout over these creature comforts. We shout over clothes and cars and cash and cribs and collectibles. We shout over that stuff, but what happens when that stuff is no longer there? Because I've learned that there are some days you'll have, but there are some days you won't have. Some days you'll have more than enough money in the bank, and some days you try just to not have to be charged that extra them dollars when you over. Some days it's not enough. So what do you do when those days happen? Let me tell you this: that you don't want to be in a position where there's nothing wrong with celebrating God for what he's given you, for what he's done, for what's happened in your life. But what you don't want to happen is focus on the stuff. So when the stuff is no longer there, now you are feeling sorry. Then your sorrow leads to stress, and your stress leads to separation from God, because you based your relationship on what God was giving you, and you celebrated God for what he was giving you versus himself. Your true shout, your true joy should be based on something more valuable. I believe this morning that too often we don't understand the value of our salvation. So this morning, I just want to share with you just a tad bit why salvation shouts me. Why salvation shouts me. Pastor, why does it shout you? First of all, salvation shouts me because it tells my story. The text says, wherefore he is able also to save. It tells my story. I am a sinner. Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. I am a sinner, but not only am I a sinner, but Sister Faye, I'm a sinner that's stuck. Okay. Not only am I a sinner, I'm a sinner that's stuck. And if I go a step further, I'm a sinner that's stuck in sin. You see, we get stuck in sin. That's what happens. We get stuck in sin. And when we get stuck in sin, there is a reason we're stuck in sin. If we could all just be honest, we get stuck in sin over several reasons. One reason we're sometimes stuck in sin is because we have no control over sin. You see, sin has a way of getting control over us, and we don't have control over our own self, and we don't have control over sin, so we get caught in sin and can't get out. We tell sin, leave me alone. I don't want to do it no more. Let me go. But it just won't let you go because it has control over us. Sometimes we are stuck in sin because of control. But not only are we stuck in sin because of control, we're also stuck in sin because we get complacent. We're there and we're afraid to leave. We're there and we get settled there. And we don't know what happens if we leave this, if I get out of this, if I bypass this. I don't know what it's going to look like to be by myself. I don't know what it's going to feel like not to have these friends anymore. I don't know what it's going to be like, because all I know is this sin keeps me complacent with these people and in these places. And if I leave this place, if I leave these people and leave that sin, I don't know what it's going to be like. And as scary as it is scary for us. I ain't even comfortable. I don't even like it no more. It don't even bring me joy the way it used to, but I'm scared to leave this place. And so that's why sometimes we're stuck, because sometimes it's a control issue, sometimes it's a complacency issue, but then, sir, also sometimes we are just simply clueless. You see, sin, when it got a hold of us, when it introduced itself to us, when it hooked up with us, it didn't tell us all the details. It didn't give us the fine print. It didn't tell us all the stuff that it would mess up, all the things that would go wrong, all the times that it would let us down, all the times that it would cause people to leave us alone and us to leave people alone. It didn't give us all the fine print. I found out that sin leaves us clueless sometimes. We're playing checkers, but sin is playing chess. And so here it is. We have no idea what sin is really doing to us, doing in us, and doing to us and in us and through us. Have no idea what it's doing to us. And so we're stuck in sin. And the reality is, although we may have different issues, although we may have different situations, our story is the same. We're all sinners. We're all stuck, and we're all stuck in sin. But here it is. Not only are we sinners that are stuck in sin, but we're sinners that need saving. The reason salvation shouts me is because it's made for people like me. God bless you, heaven smile upon you. But salvation is made for sinners, people like me. You see, salvation isn't for the righteous folk. Salvation isn't for the holy person. Salvation is for the sinner. And so the text says this morning, wherefore he is all able also to save. The reason salvation shouts me is because it tells my story. It tells my story that I need saving. But not only does the text tell me that I need, does it tell the reason it shouts me, because it tells my story, but secondly, it explains privilege. You see, in our day and time, when my son gets a little bit older, I'm gonna have to explain something to them called white privilege. White privilege, where one receives benefits. This is Dean's definition. Benefits, resources, allowances are afforded to them, to white people, wholly and solely based on the color of their skin. That because they are white, they are put in a different class, able to do stuff that we cannot do, able to say things that we cannot say, have rights that are not written that we don't have. As a black man, it's a doggone shame that we're still having to deal with these white privileges, where we get shot in cars, when we get pulled over, and we saying, yes, sir, officer. Well, white folk just say what's on their mind and go off. It's white privilege, where we can apply for the same job, have the same qualifications, but they got a leg up on us because of the color of their skin, because of the town they grew up in and the area that they are associated with. They're presumed to be better than we are. This white privilege, where when drugs infiltrated our neighborhood, they lock us up, but when it's now entered their neighborhood, they want to send them to rehab. White privilege. This white privilege is real, and it helps me to understand that not only is there such thing as white privilege, but there's also a thing as Christian privilege. You see, the white privilege is sometimes, watch this. Some white people don't even recognize that they have the privilege. It's just their way of life. That's all they know. It's just what's normal for them. They can't comprehend, they don't understand what it is that we go through as being black. They don't even understand it. Well, the reality is there is a Christian privilege that we have, that we don't always understand what it is. So if I could just take 2 minutes and explain this Christian privilege to you, explain this to you. Here it is. The believer possesses privileges, 2 of them, one called pardoning and the other one called justification. Pardoning and justification. Layer 1 is pardoning. Layer 2 is justification. You see, pardoning is forgiveness of an offense. It is the release from the penalty of an offense. I'm pardoned from it. I believe it's the governor that has the opportunity to pardon those that are in jail or the prison. Somebody can pardon them. And it goes in and says your punishment is wiped away. That's what pardoning does. It wipes away the punishment. But not only is there pardoning, but there's also justification. And to be justified means it's a legal term, which means we're placed before God. We are made free from an offense. We're viewed just as if I had not done it. Pardoning erases the punishment, but justification erases the offense. Pardoning erases the punishment, but justification erases the offense. So with justification, I am treated by God as though I did not sin when I doggone well know I did. That is the privilege of a Christian. That is the privilege that we have. It explains the privilege. That's what salvation does. It says that I'm able to stand before God guilty. But he pardons me. He does not punish me like I should be punished. Then he justifies me, which means that he looks at me as if I never did the offense that I was wiped clean from the punishment from. You see, salvation, it explains that to me so that I know that God looks at me right. That's why Jude says, now unto him who's able to present us faultless before his glorious presence. We've got to know that this grace that God affords to us through pardoning and justification allows us to understand the privilege that we have and why salvation shouts me. You've got to understand that salvation is something great because it says that I am guilty of what I've done, but God will come and say there is no penalty for what you've done. Excuse me, but I know all the stuff that I've done. I know a whole bunch of mistakes I've made, the stuff I did intentionally and the stuff I did not do intentionally, the stuff that I did on purpose, the stuff that I planned to do, the stuff that I did by myself, the stuff that I hooked up with other people, the stuff I did early in the morning, the stuff I did late at night. I know exactly what I've done, and God says, as guilty as you are, no punishment for you. As guilty as you are, you're not going to be chastised for this. As guilty as you are, I'm going to wipe your slate clean. But not only does God not punish me, then he treats me as if I hadn't done anything wrong. You've got to understand that salvation says God looks at us as if I'm right when I know I'm wrong. He erases all the dirt I've done, erases all the stains I've made on my life, erases all of the sin, erases all the cussing, erases all of the things that we've done in life and wipes it clean. That's why salvation shouts me, not because I can get a new car. Heathens with crooked credit can get a new car. I ain't shouting over that, but I'm shouting the way God sees a Negro like me, the way God sees somebody that is sinful, the way God sees somebody that made mistakes time and time and time again. How in the world can he look at somebody like me and say that you're clean? As dirty as I know I am, as filthy as I know I've been, he justifies us, treats us like we're right, treats us like we hadn't done anything wrong, treats us as if all is well between us. God looks at us and says, I'm going to clean your slate. And I'm going to show you how much I love you, that I'm not going to even see all that you have done. You see, because the reality is, as much as I love my wife, the times that she's done me wrong, I really want to look over that, but sometimes I can't. Sometimes she wants to look at me past the mistakes I've made against her, but she can't because we're human. But God blinds himself to all that we've done against him and loves us like we never did it. That's why salvation shouts me, because it doesn't put the power on my plate, but on God's plate. That he looks at us differently. Why salvation shouts me? It tells my story. Not only does it tell my story, it explains privilege. Because he says, wherefore he is able also to save. To save who? To save them to the uttermost. He's able to save them to the uttermost that come unto God by him. You see, that's the privilege of this thing. That when we come to God through Jesus, he saves us to the uttermost. I know that's old school terminology and we don't use that in today's church, but that literally is a compound word in the Greek. It literally means to an end. It's to the end. It's completely. He saved us to the uttermost. Completely, he saves us. Those that will come to him. So salvation shouts me because it tells my story, explains my privilege, but then it celebrates grace. Goes on to say, seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for them. You see, salvation celebrates grace. Put Troy, do me a favor. I got a little ring in number 4 somewhere. You see, the gift of salvation that God gives us, it is for the future, but it's also for the present. The future one day will be removed from this. There's a reason to shout right there. That one day will be removed from this, from the worries of this world, from the trials, from the ups and the downs, from the sickness, from the hurts, from people, from situations, from just the mundane flow of life will be removed from this and in the presence of God forevermore. And so it is the future that will be revealed of salvation. But it's not only just a future by and by, but salvation also reveals itself right now in the present. Because in the present we see God working. The unsaved don't get the benefit of seeing God work. The unsaved never see that. Unsaved never see that. It's like, can you imagine living life and never hearing music? Never hearing a song, never hearing an instrument, never hearing a verse, never hearing a chorus, a bridge, never hearing the tones, the keys, never hearing any of that. You can live life like that, but you're missing out on so much. When we are saved, we get to hear the music of life. And those that are not saved don't. They're missing out and don't even know they're missing out. And so when we, in the present, see God's work, see his salvation working in our life, it causes us to shout over the salvation of God. Because my salvation, it celebrates his grace. Let me show you what I mean, and I'm done. It says, seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for them. Who is the them? The them that he saved. So he is living to make intercession for the saved folk. That's why it shouts me. I worked real hard this week. I had some PowerPoints for us, so I could really illustrate to you what I wanted to show you and how I could show you. But on the illustration, it had a couple points. My last point, it had me here. It had God there. And along this journey called life, we walked toward God. In everything that we did, we're trying to move and get closer to God, trying to know God better, trying to love God more, trying to surrender our all to Him. We're moving toward Him, but somehow, somewhere along the way, instead of going straight, there was an avenue that we could go this way, which led to sin. And instead of moving toward God, we moved toward being deeper and deeper into sin. But along that line of sin, there came an obstruction in the road called intercession. And when we got to the point of intercession where God was interceding for us, it allowed us to merge back into the line where we were headed to get back toward God. And that line is called grace. I tried to make it clear, so let me put it to you like this one more time. In life, we move forward toward God, but sometimes we get off track. Sin enters our way. Sin gets in the way, and we find ourselves going deeper and deeper into sin, deeper and deeper into sin, but God intercedes for us. That means He talks on our behalf. And what it does is it causes us to get back in line, to get back on the road, to get closer to God. And that line, getting back closer to God, it's God's grace. That's why salvation shouts me, because it celebrates grace. It celebrates that God didn't allow what should have been in my life, but He leads me back to where I should be in life. Good evening, church. God bless you. Heaven smile upon you. You've got to know that the reason I can celebrate, the reason I shout over salvation is because it means that God not only in the by and by has me covered, because He's building a house not made with hands. Yes, I can celebrate the by and by, but I can also celebrate that right now He covers me just as I am. He covers me just where I am. He covers me right where I am. And so even when I get off track, God still loves me. Even when I get off track, God still cares for me. Even when I get off track, His grace covers me. And when His grace covers me, I'm able to celebrate God for all that He has done. I wish I had a witness in here, because I'm done. God bless you. Heaven smile upon you. Know that God loves us so much that even in the midst of our sin, He won't let us stay right there. But He's got a hope for us to get us back in line, back on the road of grace, so that we can get back toward God. That's why salvation shouts me, because even when I don't celebrate the gift of my salvation, even when I don't walk in the relationship that I ought to walk in with God, He still comes and gets me. He didn't leave me in my sin. He didn't leave me there when He met me. And every now and then, He's got to go back and get me again. Yes, I'm saved. Yes, He loves me, and the fact that he intercedes for me, the fact that he's there living right now to intercede for me, shows me that there is power in his grace. His grace shows up for me and for you. His grace shows up in our lives to get us back where we ought to be. So glad about God's grace. So glad that it finds me on a sinful road, because I don't know about you, but I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore, very deeply stained within, seeking to rise no more. But the master of the sea, he heard my despairing cries, and from the waters he lifted me. Now safe am I. Love lifted me. Love lifted me when nothing else could help. His love lifted me. Why salvation shouts me? It tells my story. It explains my privilege, but it also celebrates grace. That there's yet room for God's grace in our lives. That he will get us where we need to be by his power. He yet liveth to intercede for us. He lives for us. It is his intercession that allows us to see his grace. He intercedes. Talk to the Father for us. Because the reality is sometimes we're in positions in life where we can't talk to God, where it's hard for us to talk to God. Whether it's sin, whether it's a struggle, whether it's a situation, whether it's stress, the Father intercedes, the Son intercedes to the Father for us. Salvation shouts me because I recognize grace is more valuable than a car. God's grace is more valuable than a new house and a job. The reason salvation shouts me is because I see God doing it even when we didn't ask. But his love covers us in such a way that he wouldn't just let us fall. Maybe there's somebody here today that